Gear up for Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. It's your final word on sports all across the state. Here's your host, Phil Kornblue.
No, guys like Tom Savage, Brandon Reed, they've been through this situation before. As a rookie coming into, this type of, NFL coming from college to NFL is totally different, especially as a quarterback. So just trying to ask them questions, how they went through it, and a lot of other veteran guys, offensive, defense, and just trying to find, ways to get through this process.
Deshaun Watson. We'll hear a little bit more from Deshaun a little bit later here. Next segment, as a matter of fact, Teddy Hefner with you, sitting in for the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Phil Kornblue, who is finally enjoying his last day today of vacation. He'll be back with you on Monday. I've enjoyed a couple of weeks, got another day to go, though, and I am looking forward to that. Mark Kingston, USC baseball coach, will join us at the bottom of the hour. We've got recruiting. Patrick Daniel is a little bit nervous about doing the recruiting, but he'll be fine. He'll be dandy. George Bryan, top of the second hour, to talk a little bit of golf. I'm always ready to talk some golf. And also Monty Dutton, the full Monty, a little NASCAR in the 7 o'clock hour as well. So we got a lot planned, lots and lots planned, but still want to hear from you. 35 days until September the 2nd. That's when most of the state high school, our college teams get started. High school started today, practice. USC will practice on Monday. Clemson will practice on Thursday. It is just around the corner. So I do want to hear from you. 800. Make sure I got this number right, Patrick. I'm doing it from memory. 800-956-7266. I'm the man. What are you expecting from your team this season? I still don't believe Clemson fans when they say, 10-2, that's okay. Yeah, 10-2, we'll take 10-2. I just don't believe that after the past 2 seasons. Some news notes, not good news, coming from Coastal Carolina. Joe Moglia, a 5-month medical leave. He will be missing the entire season. He will miss the 2017 season. Moglia is 68 years old. He says he plans to return at the end of the season and expects to coach several more seasons. He has a bronchial asthmatic reaction to allergies, which he stressed is not a disease, but so it really, he's no in imminent danger, nothing like that, but it's something that needs to be taken care of, and he wants to get it taken care of. Moglia has been 51-15 at Coastal Carolina. 51-15, as my old grandma used to say. That ain't bad, but he does expect to be back in the 2018 season. Number of other news notes, we'll get to them. The Clemson Ring of Honor, former Clemson greats Tree Rollins, Kevin Johnson, and Michael Green will be inducted into the Clemson Ring of Honor this coming academic year. It marks the first time since 1994 that there have been as many as 3 inductees into the prestigious ring in the same year. It's the highest accolade a former Clemson athlete or coach can receive. Rollins joins Dale Davis, Banks McFadden as the only members of the Clemson men's basketball in the Ring of Honor. Johnson joins Charles Warren and Jonathan Byrd as the third member, the first Ring of Honor member in men's track. Folks my age, or maybe even a little bit younger, remember Rollins very well. Played basketball for the Tigers in the 1970s. Johnson was a golfer in the 80s, and Green competed with the men's track team in the 1990s. All 3 were named to the ACC's 50-year anniversary team in their respective sport, and all were named All-Americans. Rollins, star center for the Clemson basketball team. Thoroughly enjoyed watching him play back in the day. The Browns have signed Brandon Wiles. The professor all over this one yesterday, making the comment that getting cut early could be if you're going to get cut, it could be it could be better for you because you get an opportunity with a bunch of other teams to quickly sign you, and that happened yesterday Wiles was waived by the New York Jets, and he was quickly signed by the Cleveland Browns this afternoon. Yeah, Brandon going to some powerhouses there, but that's all right. As long as they pay you. Wiles originally signed by the Falcons as an undrafted free agent this past year, signed by the Jets after not making the Falcons roster coming out of preseason. Spent 10 weeks on the practice squad, but he did appear in 4 games last season. 10 carries for 27 yards, 2 receptions for 20 yards. So Brandon Wiles has another chance in the league. We mentioned this yesterday in case it came kind of late, so in case you didn't catch it, P.J. Dozier, a former USC basketball player, has signed a 3-year deal. Well, let me back up. I don't know if it's a 3-year deal, and I can't remember. Anyway, it's a partially guaranteed contract with the Mavericks. I might be confusing his trade or his deal and Sedarius Thornwell's deal, but Sedarius, 2 of his 3 years are guaranteed. P.J. Dozier, this is a partially guaranteed contract. I am not an NBA expert, so I can't break down the Mavs roster for you, but I do know that they could use some size in the backcourt. So P.J. Dozier maybe will get a good opportunity there. South Carolina State picked to finish 3rd in the MEAC. The North Carolina Central, number 1. The preseason predicted order of finish by the media. Of course, media would never get this right. North Carolina A&2 2nd, South Carolina State 3rd, Bethune-Cookman 4th, Hampton 5th, then Florida A&M, Norfolk State, Morgan State, Howard, Savannah State, and Delaware State. And All-American, All-MEAC linebacker Darius Leonard was named the preseason Defensive Player of the Year for the 2nd straight season. Makes sense since he was the 2016 Defensive Player of the Year. In addition, Leonard was named the Mel Blount National Defensive Player of the Year as selected by SBN. Box to Road National Defensive Player of the Year, the 4th straight Bulldog player to win the MEAC Defensive Player of the Year accolades. He is a really good player, and he is on the Butkus Award watch list this season, which is a pretty good deal from a FCS ball club. Also, the other Bulldogs, 4 others earned All-MEAC first-team preseason honors. Linebacker Deshaun Taylor, a senior. Graduate defensive back Jason Baxter. Senior offensive lineman Robin Stevenson. And Justin Evans. Stevenson and Evans, both offensive linemen. Offensive lineman Victor Ishmael. Kicker Tyler Scandrett. Defensive lineman Greg Newell. Defensive back Devontre Powell. All seniors earned preseason All-MEAC second-team honors. Senior defensive end Ty Cravens was named to the All-MEAC third team. Of course, the Bulldogs opened the season on September the 3rd. That's Sunday afternoon in Baton Rouge against Southern University. That's the annual MEAC SWAC challenge, and it will be televised on ESPN2. Kickoff at 1:30. That Leonard is a really, really good ball player. So congratulations to Coach Buddy Pugh and SC State, although I don't think Buddy's going to be satisfied with finishing 3rd. I think he's going to want to do just a little bit better than that. As I mentioned, high school football practice did get started around the state today. So hopefully no injuries, and hopefully they handled the heat very well also, but high school football did get started. One baseball note, David Price scratched from his start tonight with the Red Sox and put on the 10-day disabled list with left elbow inflammation. The left elbow is the same area that gave him some problems earlier in the year. Price did not make his first start until May the 29th on the start of the year on the DL due to that injury to his elbow and forearm area. All right, those are some news notes out there. We do want your phone calls, 800-956-7266. And when we come back, we'll hear from Deshaun Watson.
take it one day at a time.
What has been the most surprising part of the game so far?
If I had to pick one thing, probably today on the goal line. It's been a blast. It's been good. Learning from all the great guys like Tom and Brandon, and just kind of, taking one.
About every National Football League team is in camp. The Jets report tomorrow. The Jets are so good they don't need quite as much practice, so they're waiting until the end to report. I'm not sure. I think there's a couple other teams that may be reporting tomorrow as well. The Texans have been in camp for a few days, and Deshaun Watson says, so far, so good. It's going pretty well.
It's been a blast. It's been good. Learning from all the great guys like Tom and Brandon, and just kind of, take it one day at a time.
What has been the most surprising part of the game so far?
If I had to pick one thing, probably today on the goal line, how fast things are moving. Between inside the 5, defense is coming, offense is getting off the ball, so you really have to be mentally sharp and be fundamentally sharp down there.
Sean, they always say when guys come to college and NFL, the speed of the NFL is an adjustment. And what do you think about the speed of the guys on defense and the wide receivers compared to college?
It's faster. The guys are knowing what to do. They're operating and communicating better, so they're being able to react quicker. But for me, it's just football. I'm just going out there having fun. This is what I love to do, so I don't worry about the speed or anything. I just worry about my job.
You said you had a good foundation at Clemson and what he liked you to do at the line of scrimmage. Did that help you in your adjustment to the NFL?
I think so, just because I learned so much at Clemson University, and having to take control at the line of scrimmage was very key in the offense. And you got to do the same thing here and take it to another level. So I'm still learning. It's still going to be ways to improve. I'm always going to try to find ways to get better and be more smooth at the line of scrimmage. But it's a good start.
Deshaun, how good is this? Jumping in late, hopefully you haven't been asked already. Just how good has this quarterback room been for you during the time since you got here? Every day being around these guys and just soaking up everything.
It's amazing. It's good, not just for me, but for those guys too. We all pretty much growing to be best friends, and we always hanging with each other. On the practice field, we're rooting for each other. We always communicate and finding ways. Even outside of football, we're always hanging out. So talking about golf, cars, watches, different things outside of football. So it's a great environment.
Wonder if Deshaun Watson has a $150,000 earring yet. Deshaun, if you do, don't go jet skiing with that earring on. $150,000 earring at the bottom of Lake Lanier somewhere. If you didn't hear that story, Julio Jones went jet skiing, and he forgot to take his earring off, and he got knocked off the jet ski, and he came back up, but the earring did not. I wish I knew where that was. I'd be going get my scuba diving gear out. All right, about 6:23, we do have room for you at 800-956-7266. If you're just joining us, Joe Muglia, 5-month medical leave. Jamie Chadwell will take over Coastal Carolina. Muglia does expect to be back in 2018. Nothing life-threatening. Just some things he wants to take care of. Former University of South Carolina running back Brandon Wiles signed by the Cleveland Browns a day after he was released by the Jets. If you missed it yesterday, P.J. Dozier signing a partially guaranteed contract with the Mavericks. The Clemson Ring of Honor, and this is the most prestigious, the highest accolade a former Clemson athlete or coach can receive. Tree Rollins, basketball player, Kevin Johnson, golfer, and Michael Green from track selected to join the Clemson Ring of Honor. That's a pretty good deal. MEAC, South Carolina State picked to finish third in the MEAC this season. Darius Leonard, the preseason Defensive Player of the Year, which of course makes sense because he was the Defensive Player of the Year after the 2016 season. North Carolina Central, North Carolina A&T picked ahead of South Carolina State in the MEAC. They get started September the 3rd. That's a Sunday. They'll be playing Southern in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I wonder if that's at LSU's home field. Patrick, you got any idea? I don't know. But I wonder if that's there. Patrick Daniel behind the bulletproof glass, punching all the proper buttons and pulling everybody up for us. We do have some things planned, but like I said, we do have room for you if you want to join us, maybe talk some football. 35 days until the September 2nd openers, and really key opener, I think, for South Carolina. That game against NC State up in Charlotte that could really set the tone. NC State is a 5-point favorite. Of course, Clemson opening against Kent State, kind of a glorified scrimmage, but that's okay because the next 2 weeks they get it. They got all they want with Auburn at home and Louisville on the road. But we're 35 days away from the September the 2nd games. Gamecocks begin practice on Monday. Clemson begins practice on Thursday. So football just around the corner. Of course, the high school footballs practices began around the state today. We do have some things scheduled for you. You know, if I'm here, we're going to talk baseball. Mark Kingston will join us, the University of South Carolina baseball coach. I want to get some of his thoughts on these experimental rules that they'll be using next season in the SEC, and see what he thinks about those. If you have not heard about the experimental rules, they have expanded baseball video review on an experimental basis. Basically, the coaches will get a challenge, and they can keep challenging as long as they are right. One of the other, and they've also expanded what can be reviewed, but I'm not going to go into every one of those plays. But another thing that's going to be interesting, I want to talk to the coach about this, wireless communication has been approved between the dugout and the catcher, trying to speed the game up a little bit. So I want to check with the coach, see what he thinks about that. Also, what's going on, get some of his thoughts about his roster. I'm sure he's had time to evaluate the roster, how things are going in recruiting. And, of course, we're talking about football just around the corner. Of course, as soon as school starts, the Gamecocks will be getting on the baseball field for fall practice as well. They'll start with some individual workouts before getting together for team workouts, and we'll check with the coach and see if he's got the dates on those times yet. But I thought we'd get Coach Kingston on today. Of course, Patrick Daniel will have the recruiting about 6:48 or so. He'll get the award-winning, worldwide famous recruiting report. George Brown will join us to talk some golf at the top of the 7 o'clock hour. And Monty Dutton will do the full Monty and talk some NASCAR at the bottom of the 7 o'clock hour. Are they at Pocono this weekend? I think they are, but we might ought to check that since we got Monty coming on. And I really don't keep up with NASCAR like I once did, to be honest with you. I covered NASCAR as a member of the print media for a little over 2 years, about 2.5 years, and thoroughly enjoyed that. Enjoyed getting to know some of the drivers back then. When you talk about having lunch and Dale Earnhardt's Winnebago with him, that's that's pretty cool. Those are memories that kind of stick with you. But folks out there now, I don't know. I really don't know any of the drivers these days. I've not covered NASCAR, but Monty does, and he'll give us some thoughts about Pocono and what they rested a Brickyard last week, right? In Indianapolis. We'll get some thoughts from Monty about NASCAR. So all that on the schedule, but we do want to make some room for you. We have not been able to get as many calls this weekend as I would have liked. So we want to make some room for you. Baseball tonight, the Braves are at Philadelphia, 7:05. Julio, sometimes I pitch well and sometimes I don't. Tehran going for Atlanta, 7-7, 4.69 ERA. And Jeremy Hellickson will go for Philadelphia, 6-5, 4.44 ERA. Boston is at home against Kansas City, but David Price has been scratched and put on the disabled list once again. He has having some problems with that elbow, the elbow that had him on the disabled list to start the season. So a couple of baseball notes for you there as well. All right, we'll be back with Mark Kingston. All right, Teddy Hefner back with you. We're on Sports Talk, and you know me, I'm always ready to talk some baseball. We're 35 days until the start of the college football season around here with South Carolina and Clemson and a bunch of the other schools in the state. And we're about that length away until the teams start doing little baseball fall drills as well. Mark Kingston joining us from over at South Carolina. Coach, have you got your fall practices set up yet? When will you get started with that?
Our first week of practice will be probably week 3. The week 1, when the kids arrive on campus, is usually a get acclimated time. They have a lot of meetings on campus and with us as coaches. Week 2 and 3, you start individual small group workouts, and then by the end of week 3, that's when you really start going full bore with your entire team.
Are you one who likes to scrimmage a bunch in the fall?
Normally, we would scrimmage, I would say, 2 to 3 times a week. However, being a new coach here and having a lot of guys that we need to get a look and evaluate, scrimmage a little bit more than I am used to, just because we have to try to get a handle on what we have here. We need to get a look at our pitchers. There's going to be a lot of new guys looking at new roles, and I want to get a look at these hitters firsthand. I've seen them on tape. I've seen their stats, but in game situations, I want to try to get a good handle on exactly what we have on this roster.
USC baseball coach Mark Kingston talking with us. You said you watched them on tape, you've looked at stats, et cetera, et cetera. As far as the evaluation of the returnees, do you feel like you have a little bit of a handle on, I mean, you've got everybody back from an offensive standpoint, a little bit thin, pitching-wise. Do you feel like you got a pretty good handle on what you do have, or do you have to wait and see what they do, as you said, with some of those scrimmages?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think pitching wise, obviously Hill is the one guy coming back that pitched a lot on the weekends last year. But we lost a lot of pitchers and a lot of innings to the draft and to graduation. So from a pitching standpoint, we really need to see guys in action. We really need to see who's going to step up and who's going to have the ability to help us win games in the SEC. Offensively, we have just about everybody back, except for Destino, who moved on to professional baseball. And we have some what I think are future stars, guys like Cortez and Olson was an all-star in the Cape Cod League this year. And then I think we have a lot of other guys that are returning starters that we're hoping we can help take that next step.
Without getting into any specific positions, are there some position changes you have in mind, or is that something that still has to be determined as well?
Yeah, that'll have to be determined. I want to get these guys on the field. I know Tolbert has played a number of different positions. I know Stokes has been primarily a shortstop. I know some outfielders have moved around. And Olson actually is a guy that could potentially move back into the infield. He has played infield in the past. Last year he played mostly right field for us. So we're going to look at every possible option to try to give ourselves the best chances for success. So, we're going to tell our guys early on, what you've done in the past matters, but what you do now in front of us and what we think you're going to do in the future is going to be much more important to us. So there may be some guys surprised at us looking at different positions. I'm always a big believer in having position flexibility for our guys. If a guy can play outfield and infield, he's got a better chance to get in a lineup. So we're going to look at every possible option to try to maximize this roster.
Hey, by the way, you still sleeping in the office?
Occasionally. We are. I think we're getting closer to finding a house here in town. We worked so hard at recruiting and the roster and putting a staff together that we almost forgot that we actually had to move a family here and find some real estate. But I think we're getting pretty close there, and we'll be settled into Columbia here, I think, pretty soon.
Okay. Another big reason I wanted to have you on is to talk about some of these rules. Now, the baseball video review next year will be on an experimental basis in just the conference games and the conference tournament. And it's basically going to be a challenge. I know they're expanding some of the plays that can be reviewed, and I really don't want to go into all of those, but the challenge system, do you like that? As long as you get a challenge and as long as you're successful, you can keep challenging?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to get to play right. You just don't want to see games decided by umpire error whenever possible. So I'm in favor of that. I don't want to slow the game down too much, and I hope the system that we come up with is as efficient as possible. But I sure as heck would never want to lose a game because an umpire got the wrong call.
Where is the folks that can overturn this? Where are they going to be located? Are they going to be in your stadium, or will they be back in Birmingham or somewhere? How is that going to work, or do you know?
They'll be on site.
Okay.
Where exactly in our stadium, I'm not sure. I think they're going to come in and get on site and see what looks like the best opportunity to have the umpires be able to get there and be quick. But from what I've seen in the past, the umpires will look at the replays on site as close to the field as possible.
Okay. And once again, if the challenge is unsuccessful, the coach loses the ability to challenge the rest of the way. So it does bring a little bit of strategy into that as well.
Yeah, no doubt. I think you're going to have to get a good feel for when to use it, when not to use it. My guess is if we think a call is wrong early on, we're going to be aggressive with it because, a play in the second inning might help you win or lose a game just as easily as in the 8th or 9th. And if you have some conviction that they got the call wrong, there's no reason not to challenge it because there may be no more plays the rest of the game. So we'll probably err on the side of being aggressive with that.
Good point, Coach Mark Kingston from Carolina joining us. And the other one, and I kind of consider myself a bit of a purist, but I like the DH, so I guess maybe I'm not as much of a purist as some people. But the wireless communication between the dugout and the catcher, what do you think about that, and how's that going to work? Because you don't just go down to TNT Sports and buy an earpiece.
I am in favor of this, and I'll tell you why. These days, for the great majority of programs, the pitching coaches call the pitches, and I think for just reason. The college catchers have so much on their plate. They have to defend, they have to hit, they have to worry about biology class, they have to worry about a lot of different things as a student athlete. The pitching coach can spend a lot of time preparing and studying the other team and figuring out what the best course of action to get hitters out is. So I think it's a good thing that coaches call pitches for the most part. Now, sometimes you have a senior and he's able to call the game and you can trust him. But for the most part, I think pitching coaches are much more prepared to call a game and help you win. That being said, some teams take so long between pitches to get that process in. So to have a coach be able to just say fastball or curveball and the catcher gets that immediately, I think that's a good thing. I would compare that to back in the 70s in football. You used to run plays in with the wide receiver. He would have to give it to the quarterback. The quarterback would then call the play in the huddle. Now you have a coach call the play. The quarterback gets it right away. And you see how fast offenses can play now in college and in pro football. So to me, I think it's good progress. I think if it takes a little bit of the lulls out of our game, I think that would be a positive thing. I'm a purist as well. I'm a little more old school, but I think if we can take some of the dead time out of our game, I think the fans will appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely want to improve the pace of play. Coach, how do you like the state of South Carolina so far?
Love it. Love Columbia. I had a chance to visit Charleston this past week and spend some time at some really cool places around Charleston and meet some great people. I've just been recruiting and watching some summer games as well. Had a chance to see a good amount of the state and love the state, love the people, and just couldn't be more excited to be a part of it.
Okay, Coach, one other question. We'll let you go. Will fans be allowed during the fall scrimmages? Will fans be allowed in the stands?
They will be encouraged, not just allowed, but encouraged. We want them to come out and watch what we're all about, watch how we're going about our business. I was watching a little bit on the NFL Network, watching 15,000 fans out of the Patriots workout. So not only will our fans be allowed, but they'll be encouraged to come out. The more the merrier. That'll be our mindset.
Sounds great. Hey, Coach, thank you so much for joining us here on Sports Talk. We really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Anytime.
All right. Coach Mark Kingston joining us here on Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. I wanted to get his thoughts more about the rules than the other stuff, but I think the other stuff was very helpful as well. And fans will be encouraged to attend the scrimmages. All right, hang in there. We'll be back. Pat Daniel with the recruit. All right, Teddy Hefner back with you. I'm sitting in for Phil one more time. Phil will be back on Monday. And on Monday, he himself will be doing the award-winning recruiting report. But right now, we go to the man, the myth, the legend. Well, building a legend. Patrick Daniel for our recruiting report.
Thank you, Teddy. Dutch Fork defensive back Bryce Thompson said Thursday night he has successfully completed the academic work he needed to be able to commit on July 30th. Thompson said that date has been his goal, though he's not 100% certain he will commit Sunday. Thompson, who plans to graduate early, needed one more class this month in summer school to be in a position to commit then. He said earlier this month he had already made up his mind on his decision. I have to talk with my mom and coaches, said Thompson, a former Virginia Tech commitment. USC, NC State, and Virginia Tech were the schools on his list. He decommitted from the Hokies in June after attending a USC camp, and the Gamecocks have ratcheted up their interest since then. He was back at USC last Saturday. I wasn't 100% committed to Virginia Tech, and I felt like it wasn't fair for me to stay committed if I'm over here looking at other schools, so I decided it would be the best if I decommitted. I'm looking for playing time, of course, and how the coaches treat you and how they make you become a better player. Thompson, who also plays receiver, said USC commitment quarterback DeCarrion Joyner has been in his ear a lot, attempting to persuade him to commit to the Gamecocks. He said earlier this month, while USC has been on him hard, he wasn't hearing as much from Virginia Tech and NC State. High school football practice for public league schools in South Carolina began Friday. At Conway High, the Tigers will be minus one of their top players for the first couple of practices, as defensive end Raekwon O'Neal is visiting Rutgers Friday and Maryland Saturday. He spent the earlier part of the week in the Bronx visiting family. These visits follow one to USC last weekend and will be his final visits before he renders a decision on August 16th. O'Neal was among the prospects invited to USC's Spurs Up gathering last Saturday and was joined on the visit by his mother and stepfather. He said he enjoyed the event and found time to talk with head coach Will Muschamp and defensive line coach Lance Thompson. They were telling me that they need me and they need me to stay home, O'Neal said. Coach Thompson said he's going to develop me into a great player and I can help early with them. Asked how the visit impacted USC's position with them, O'Neal offered up his now stand to a question regarding the Gamecocks' position. He said he's still considering many of the schools which have offered him, like NC State, Indiana, Georgia Tech, Illinois, Wake Forest, West Virginia, Mississippi State, Michigan, Maryland, Penn State, Kentucky, and Louisville. I'm open to all, to be honest with you, O'Neal said. Linebacker Channing Tindall of Spring Valley met with some reporters after Friday morning's first practice and updated his recruiting. Tindall said USC is still his favorite, along with Georgia, Florida, Florida State, Auburn, and Notre Dame still in the mix. He has visited all the schools except for Auburn, but he plans to get down there as soon as he can. Tindall wants to make his decision by the end of September. According to his coach, defensive end KJ Henry of Clemens, North Carolina, is about ready to cut his list of 10 schools down to 5. Coach Adrian Snow said Friday afternoon that he expects Henry to release his new short list the first of next week, either Monday or Tuesday. Henry has been working with a top 10 list of Clemson, USC, Penn State, Georgia, Ohio State, Pitt, Alabama, Louisville, Virginia Tech, and Charlotte. South Carolina and Clemson, I think they'll be all right, Snow said. He likes both of them, but liking and loving are two very different things. Those 5 will be his 5 official visits. His big thing is consistency, how he's treated consistently. Mainly, he just wants to be consistent. Snow even believes in Henry's mind that his list is even smaller than 5. In my mind, he's got it narrowed down a little bit, Snow said. The 5 he's got are great coaches and programs, and they've done a great job recruiting him thus far. He is closer than 5, maybe. Henry attended a USC camp in June, along with his 2019 teammate, defensive back Jaquan McMillian, who has a USC offer. He also visited Ohio State, Alabama, and Georgia this summer. Snow said he talked earlier this week with USC coach Will Muschamp, and he's also been in touch with Clemson defensive line coach Todd Bates. Wide receiver Russell Brown, 6'3", 205 of Lehigh Acres, Florida, named a top 5 of USC, South Florida, Georgia State, Florida Atlantic, and Appalachian State. Brown was offered by the Gamecocks earlier in the year and attended a Muschamp camp in June. It's just a great place. I love it there. He remains in touch with receivers coach Brian McClendon. He's telling me I'm a great player, how I am physical, and how I get the job done. Brown hopes to make his decision before his season and doesn't have a favorite at the moment. I'm looking at the depth charts and what happens redshirt-wise and where I can have an effect right away. Last season, Brown had 32 catches for 559 yards with 7 touchdowns. Offensive lineman Jackson Carman named a final 5 of Clemson, Ohio State, Southern Cal, Florida State, and Wisconsin during an interview Thursday on WCPO radio in Cincinnati. Carman said he won't make his decision until December and is looking for where he will be the most comfortable and feel most at home. He also cited Clemson offensive line coach Robbie Caldwell as a major reason why Clemson is strong with him. Carmen attended Ohio State's Friday Night Lights camp last week. Defensive back Chandler Jones of Miami committed to Louisville. USC had been on his short list. Clemson offered 2019 defensive back Andrew Booth Jr. of Lawrenceville, Georgia, and 2019 defensive back DJ Turner II of Sewanee, Georgia. And that's it for recruiting tonight.
All right. Good job. Good job.
Thanks,
All right, about 6:54. One note with the Braves. Jeremy Hellickson has been scratched. Just saw a note, but I have not seen a reason why. But Jeremy Hellickson scratched from starting spot tonight against the Braves, against Julio Teheran. Jake Thompson will get that start instead. All right, got a couple of minutes. Someone wants to try to get in real quick. 800-956-7266. Do appreciate Coach Mark Kingston joining us a little bit earlier. And speaking of college baseball, I hate to hear the news. Former permanent assistant coach Jeff Young has unexpectedly passed away. So I hate to pass that on, but Jeff Young has passed away. All right, we'll be joined by George Bryan. We'll talk some golf at the top of the second hour. Also, Monty Dutton a little bit later in the hour as we talk some NASCAR as well. You Clemson fans, 3 new members of the Ring of Honor: Tree Rollins, Kevin Johnson, Michael Green, all to be inducted this coming academic year into the Clemson Ring of Honor. The highest accolade a former Clemson athlete or coach can receive. Tree Rollins played men's basketball from 1973 through 1977, a 3-time All-ACC player who was inducted into the Clemson Hall of Fame in 1977. Kevin Johnson, men's golf, named to the ACC 50-year anniversary men's golf team in 2002. The first 3-time All-American in Clemson golf history, won the ACC individual championship in 1988. And Michael Green, who could fly, I remember him, won the national championship in the 100 meters outdoors in 1993, won 2 national indoor titles in the 55 meters. So he was a 3-time individual national champion, 8-time All-American, 4 outdoors and 4 indoors. And like I said, he could fly. Inducted into the Clemson Athletic Hall of Fame in 2001. So some more additions to the Clemson Ring of Honor, and can't complain about any of those 3. I think all 3 are very well deserving. All right, we will get to the top of the hour. George Bryan will join us at the when we get back. We'll talk some golf with George. I'm not even sure where the heck they're playing this year, but anyway, or this week we'll talk some golf with George, and of course his son Wesley was over at the British Open last week. So all that ahead. So don't go anywhere. Sports Talk here on the South Carolina Radio Network.
stop now. More sports talk is on its way. Listen to the final word in sports all across the state with your host, Phil Kornblut.
All right, Phil is still on vacation. He'll be back with you on Monday. Phil probably be happy to get here. We're 35 days until the start of college football, the games. USC practices on Monday. Clemson practices on Thursday. The high school football practices began all the way across the state today. And so far, I've already talked some baseball, and now I'm ready to talk some golf. How about that? George Bryan, the third, joining us. George, how are you, big guy?
Oh, I couldn't be better, Teddy. And it's great to tee it up with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't have to worry about ducking it in, duck hooking it into the parking lot like Dustin did yesterday.
Hey, not on radio. I tell you what, in radio, we strike them all perfect. That's about the way I strike them when I'm watching golf.
Right.
In fact, I hadn't missed a shot watching golf in, I don't know, 12, 13 years now, Teddy.
I don't know if you heard or not, but Dustin hits it over there between two cars, and he asked the rules official if he could get the fans to help him move the cars. Well, you remember Tiger Woods had a big old boulder moved.
And Sebby hit it in the parking lot, and they got those cars moved. How'd it turn out? How'd it work out for Dustin?
Well, they didn't move the cars. So, but Dustin, I think, he might be in danger of missing the cut. He's at 3 under par. I think the cut, talking about the Canadian Open, the cut line right now is at -4. Now, your son Wesley is not playing in Canada. Is that correct?
No, he's not. He's taking time off. He and Elizabeth, his lovely angel wife, went to Ireland to to see how it was, and he got back all right. The rascal went ahead and rented a car and drove it himself on the wrong side of the road, which, he confessed that was a mistake, which he doesn't often do, not like that. Anyway, now he's off this week, but he's playing at WGC next week. In fact, I'll be calling in theory, from Akron this time next week.
Well, George, it's nice for him to have had enough success and get enough money in the bank that he can take some time off, because a lot of times those younger golfers, when they get a chance to play, they got to play because they got to hope they make the cut and put some money in the bank. But, Wesley's had some success. He's made some money. Hopefully he's loaned you some of it. And he's got in a position where he can kind of be a little more selective with his schedule.
And, Teddy, that's one of the things that you're talking about is something that is a complete oversight that the fans or the folks that aren't familiar, they really, even those familiar, have no clue that the success you have on the PGA Tour it affords you some scheduling control. And once you reach it's really the top 50 now, and it doesn't really matter about wins or money, it's the ranking. Now, you obviously, if you get a ranking, you're going to have earned the money, but all these players are shooting for top 50 ranking or top 60 to get in. That gets them in clean, all the majors and the WBC events. And once you rotate into that circle, that's a pretty good circle. You completely control your schedule.
Let's back.
Go ahead. Otherwise, a lot of people don't realize those that are in conditional status, the guys even playing on 1 year, they do not have control of their schedule at all. They just have a number. Most people think that it's different, but it's not. Just because you got a card doesn't mean you play whenever you want to play. That's a fact.
And when the bank account's a little bit slim and you got that pin tucked in the corner, you have more of a tendency to want to hit it in the middle of the green as well, don't you?
There is no question. There's so much money out there. It was interesting though. I listened to Faraday, the 100 show, and Trevino and John Daly. They got it right. They play for the trophy. They play it. They've always played the game for fun. And at this point, Wesley plays primarily for fun, or he was playing for fun. I'll tell you what, things change quick, and there's so much money out there. He won't ever get me to endorse playing it for any other reason. The trophy and fun.
Right. Now, Wesley did not play particularly well in the Open over in Britain, excuse me. I just renamed the country over in Britain. But wouldn't you agree that that's just an experience that you can't duplicate, and it's got to help down the road?
Oh yeah, I know that. That's I knew it would be a very difficult learning curve. That's when you watch it on TV, you really have no idea how much different you have to learn to play. The ground it'd be the equivalent of going to the parking lot and trying to control your golf ball. And most people go, oh, I could do that. And maybe they could, but then you add 35 miles an hour wind and 55 degrees temperature and pouring sideways rain, intermittent with occasional sun, but it's very complex. I think he'll do fine in the future, though. I really do. Hey, Teddy, there's one thing. We got to get this right. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the ground rules made with Phil's show. We make up words.
Oh, okay, good.
It's legal.
Yeah, well, Phil does that all the time.
I like that. That just gets to the point. Britland.
Yeah, Britland. Yeah, you know, it's a combination of Britland and Ireland and whatever. Don't try this at home, people. I am a professional. Doesn't that make what Jordan Spieth did even more impressive? It seemed like he was never in major trouble until a little bit the last day. And then when he starts to get into trouble, he finishes the last 5 holes 5 under par. You're going to win a lot of golf tournaments if you can play the last 5 holes 5 under par.
And especially in major championships. And when he got into trouble, that's when everything changed. And when he hit that ball that he had to go test the rules, he was thinking. I could tell in his expression that something good was going to happen. You could just see it. And unlike the expression that he had at Augusta last year, it's way different this time around. And although I couldn't predict at that point it was going to be exactly. I knew he was still thinking, and I knew he's still playing good. And when a guy like that gets it right, he's pretty much unbeatable.
You know, George, when I play, I try to play by the rules, and sometimes people I'm playing with that I don't play with much kind of get irritated with me because I'm playing by the rules so much. But I mean, that's what the rules are for, and the rules are also there to protect you and to help you. And Jordan Spieth realized that. I'm sure when you give lessons and when you talk to juniors, you emphasize, hey, you need to really know the rules, not just to protect yourself from a penalty, but to help yourself in a situation like Jordan Spieth was in.
Absolutely, and the rules are there to help. However, they are complex and can be construed otherwise. And I actually endorse carrying the rule book in the bag. And so when you get in a situation, you try to access. And before you do that, hey, look in the index. Just look in the index of that book and see what it covers first. It covers, in my opinion, the most important part of the game: the manners, behavior, courtesy to others, playing fast. That's what I'll tell you what I'm liking is on the PGA Tour, they are speeding up their pace of play, and they're taking I think that some of the, at least what I'm seeing, in a great step, speeding up that pace. And the faster we play, the better we play, and the more people that will, and that's a fact.
Well, George, you know me, I'm never going to get a slow play penalty.
No, you won't. No way, Teddy. No way. Hey, I tell you what, I was at Rock Hill, and talking about a beautiful club. Rock Hill Country Club is an old Tillinghast, got 9 holes, Tillinghast design. The other night, I don't know if you played up there or not, but I went up for the Carolinas Women's Amateur Match Play Championship, and you can play 3-hour rounds of golf on that golf course, and it's spectacular. So Haley Clary of Lexington, she won the event, and
excellent.
Runner-up was Mary Chandler, my daughter. I had to mention that.
Okay.
She got it to the finals. I hear the music there, Teddy, but I tell you, that is a golf course that reminded me of some of what I saw on TV just last week. Rock Hill Country Club.
Okay. George, you and I need to tee it up, okay?
Look forward to it.
All right, thank you. George Bryant with our golf segment. All right, hang in there. We'll be back. Got some news notes for you and room for your calls. right, 800-956-7266. If you'd like to join us, Teddy Hefner sitting in for Phil Kornblut, Patrick Daniel doing the producing. A couple of quick news notes, and then we're going to get to Tippy. I might get a little tippy later myself. Joe Moglia, 5-month medical leave at Coastal Carolina. He's dealing with asthmatic condition reactions. Not life-threatening, though, but he wants to get it taken care of. Jamie Chadwell will take over this year. Moglia expects to be back in 2018. The Cleveland Browns have signed former University of South Carolina running back Brandon Wiles, who was released yesterday by the New York Jets. In the Clemson Ring of Honor will this academic year induct Tree Rollins from basketball, Kevin Johnson golf, and Michael Green from track. All right, let's go down to Edgefield, and Tippy is with us. Tippy, thank you for your patience.
Teddy.
Yes, sir.
I was comment about what George was saying about the rules of golf.
Okay.
How many people do you know is going to be sitting around there waiting on their buddies to play a shot that takes 30 minutes by the rules and everything? I mean, that's how many beers can they have? Not from Tippy from that. That's from my last name, but that's not.
Right.
But anyway, that's one thing.
I thought Matt Kuchar showed a lot of class. And did it really take 30 minutes? I know it took a long time. I didn't realize it was 30 minutes, but I thought Matt Kuchar really showed a lot of class, understanding that he's playing by the rules, and you do need to take your time. That's not only your buddies aren't going to wait around. That group behind you doesn't want you to take 30 minutes trying to figure out the rules either.
That's right. Well, they were the last group of the day. That's what was one thing, because that would have affected half the field and TV time and all that too. But anyway,
they'd have had to let somebody play through, no doubt about it. Yes, if somebody was behind them.
But I mean, the rules are one thing, but for the average person, I used to carry the book with me when I had it, but they change little things here and there, so everything like that changes. The people that actually do the rules. I used to golf with one of the guys that was doing that for the state of South Carolina, and he would oversee all the tournaments that we were playing, and he had to go to, update classes and all that is what I call them. I forgot what he called them, but
rules seminars.
Yeah, I mean, they change about like a pregnant woman's appetite. They're about as bad as NASCAR sometimes, but.
The basic rule of thumb, if you're playing golf, and as you know this too, Tippy, you touch your golf ball when you put it on your tee, and you don't touch it again until you take it out of the hole. And if you do that, you did well.
That's right. No, I play. I'm like you. I play by the rules to the best of my knowledge, is the way I say it.
Yeah, good point.
And I shoot 100, so if it's I'd like to hear the ball hit the bottom of the cup. So
yep, I'm with you on that. I'm with you.
Pick it up. Let's play faster. No, I paid for the round. I'm going to hear the ball hit the bottom of the cup. But I also been behind people that are slower than me, and I've had people behind me that are faster than me. And that's one thing, play by the rules, but it's another thing to go on and just get through it.
Yeah,
you have to skip a hole and come back and play it later. Yeah. I mean.
Yeah, I let those faster guys go through, because I don't want them hitting into me, because I've been hit into before, and that golf ball hurts when it nails you on the hip or something.
Well, I know that, but and they're better than you, or else you hit them back. You just hit it back to them. I found this. It must be y'all's.
I did do that one time in my younger days, but I'm too old to do that these days. All right, hey Tippy, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, man. I just want to comment on that.
All right, thank you. I mean, obviously, everyday play is a little bit different than tournament play, and obviously, even say a city tournament, state amateur, something like that is a little bit different than the Open, the British Open. But still, for the most part, if you don't play by the rules, how do you know if you're getting any better? I mean, I've gone out and played with people before, and I have. Shot back when I was halfway decent. I might shoot 77, 78, and we get to the clubhouse, and somebody in the group says, I shot 73, 74, and I saw him doing this, I saw him doing that, saw him picking up an 8-foot putt for bogey because he was frustrated, and he really didn't shoot that. So how do you know you're getting any better if you don't play by the rules? But no, you don't have to be anal about it. But certainly, basically, you touch your golf ball when you put it on the tee, and you don't touch it again until you take it out of the hole. Now that's if you're playing decent golf courses. Now there are some golf courses where you need to be able to roll it over. Otherwise, it's just really, really difficult to get a decent shot. But golf is a sport. It doesn't really build character, maybe, but it certainly reveals character. I've played golf with folks before that I just acquaintances didn't know them that well. You play golf with them, and after 18 holes of golf, I probably know more about what type of individual they are than if I had just continued the casual relationship for years. I always like talking some golf. Thank you, Tippy. I do appreciate the call. 800-956-7266. We got a couple of minutes before we get to the next break. Monty Dutton will join us about 7:34 or so to talk a little bit of NASCAR. They're at Pocono this weekend. We are 35 days until the start of football, at least around here. I mean, Presbyterian is at Wake Forest on August 31st, so that's a couple of days before that. And of course, we've got a number of games August the 26th. No really great games. The one getting the attention is Rice and Stanford over in Sydney, Australia. But the only game that really jumps out at me that might be a little bit of fun that day is San Jose State and South Florida. I can't remember where they're playing. I'll look it up real quickly. But that might be a pretty good ball game. That's the 26th, so that's a week earlier. So I guess it would be 28 days until that particular ball game. And of course, South Carolina fans are well aware, maybe too well aware of South Florida. But South Florida and Quentin Flowers, and they're playing San Jose State on that August the 26th. And not real sure. I think it's at San Jose State, but not positive. I'm trying to look real quickly at the schedule. Here it is. Yeah, it is at San Jose State on August the 26th. That might be the best game that day because Stanford is not going to have much trouble with Rice. And as I mentioned, Presbyterian and Wake Forest on August the 31st. All the SEC games are on September the 2nd. I'm sorry, September the 2nd or later. Texas A&M and UCLA play that Sunday night, and then Tennessee and Georgia Tech play in Atlanta on a Monday night. Also that Sunday night, you got Virginia Tech, West Virginia, so you kind of have to choose between those two or flip back and forth, I guess, with Texas A&M at UCLA and Virginia Tech at Virginia. And both of those games, well, I say Virginia Tech at West Virginia. It's in Landover, Maryland. But both of those games have the possibility of being pretty good ball games. UCLA is a 3.5-point favorite against Texas A&M. That probably will change a little bit by game time. And Virginia Tech's favored by 4.5 against West Virginia. So both of those games could be really, really tight. The Monday night game, Tennessee a 3.5-point favorite against Georgia Tech. The Gamecocks have a big one right off the get-go. I mean, I think that NC State game could really set the tone for South Carolina. You look at South Carolina, you're talking 6-6, 7-5. But if they can beat NC State, then you got Missouri on the road, very winnable. Kentucky at home, very winnable. Louisiana Tech at home, very winnable. You could get off to a 4-0 start, and who the heck knows what's happening with Texas A&M in the fifth week of the season. And I think Arkansas in Columbia is a very winnable game as well. All right, break. Be back. Teddy with you on Sports Talk.
The latest on this weekend's race is around the corner. The full Monty on NASCAR is next. This is Sports Talk.
All right, Teddy Hefner joined by old buddy Monty Dutton. Known each other long time. Monty, how you doing tonight? And I guess they're headed up to Pocono, right?
Yep, the tricky triangle, they call it.
Yeah. North of Philadelphia, north of Allentown, up toward the Pocono Mountains. I've never been to Pocono. I've covered a lot of NASCAR back in the day, but never did get up to Pocono.
Now, strangely, it was a fairly early track. First time I went to Pocono was before I was covering racing. I went to a friend's wedding in Pittsburgh, and I thought, hey, it's in Pennsylvania. I'll go to Pocono. And I didn't realize it was all the way across the state. And I got up at about 6 in the morning, and I went all the way, and then I went to a 500-mile race, and then I drove back to Pittsburgh. And I think I had a hard time staying awake on the way back. I remember stopping in Indiana, Pennsylvania, to see the statue of Jimmy Stewart.
Oh, I bet that was cool.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I
it
like
would have
Jimmy
been better
Stewart.
if I'd had time to look around as opposed to it being like nearly dark on Sunday evening.
The man who shot Liberty Valance. Yeah,
I was on TV just the other day. It's one of my favorite movies.
Oh, it's one of my favorites as well.
Yeah, that's one of those I'm bad guys. Lee Marvin in that movie.
Oh, he was great. He was
He's right there with Jack Palance and Shane.
Shane, come back. Yeah. All right, now we've bored people.
It's been nice to do that racing.
Yeah. Anyway, last weekend was Indianapolis, right? Any surprises to you up there?
Well, Casey Kane winning. He's been in a long slump, and he's been kind of, I guess, although he's not redheaded, he's kind of the redheaded stepchild of the Hendrick operation. And people, he has a contract through next year, but for job security, he probably really needed a victory. And he's Casey Kane is one of those guys, and you'll know exactly how I feel because of the business that we're both in. But Casey Kane has always been nice and cooperative, but he's never particularly quotable. But I have always thought I'd rather talk to a good guy who's not that dynamic than a dynamic jerk. You know,
right?
I mean, there's some people that are always, they're always feeding you a line. And so I've always sort of liked Casey. He's just he's sort of a kid of his generation. You know, he's one of those kids that is a little bit reserved, probably spent a lot of time playing video games and stuff when he was coming along. And he's harder for me to relate to, a kid that grew up on a farm in upstate South Carolina. But I think he's a nice guy, and I was glad to see him win.
Well, things have changed. I mean, I haven't been out on the NASCAR circuit in years, but just people tell me things have changed from the old days when I was out, and you could basically walk up to somebody in the garage and say, "Hey, Dale, how's it going? How's the car running?" And they just take time to talk to you. It's a little more difficult to do that these days, isn't it?
In many ways, NASCAR is sort of, first of all, it's sort of a natural consequence of success. They've been on decline in recent years, but they reached sort of the sporting mainstream.
Right.
And so I think but I mean, part of it's the same as other sports because, it's sort of a situation where NASCAR administers the sport. TV really runs it. And TV gets all the access that we used to. And I haven't been to the track much myself, but I was at Charlotte in May. And, but I mean, oddly enough, exactly what you're talking about, during this past winter, I wrote a novel about racing called Lightning in a Bottle that came out in the spring. And the inspiration, I never even thought about writing a novel about racing, but I got to thinking about how much the people had changed. There's no one today who's even remotely like Dale Earnhardt or Harry Gant or Bobby Allison, Bill Elliott. I mean, it's hard, but I also have to realize that it's partly generational too, because, people don't come up working in the cotton mills down here anymore either.
Right.
there's not that many people that haul hay bales in the summertime, and nowadays kids, if they have a job, they're working the drive-through, and so you and I didn't grow up in an age where you spent all your time thumbing through your cell phone, and so you have to. I mean, the crisis that NASCAR is in is that they're losing their base is getting older, and what these young drivers of today, who often have a lot of, what they have to do is, it's not just enough to go out there and drive. They have to inspire their generation, because there's a lot of things that, attendance is nothing like what it was, and they try to make it look better because they've taken out a bunch of seats. But there's one thing that you can't get around. You hear all these excuses, and you say that they say that the kids today have a short attention span. Well, if that's true, how come they can play a video game all afternoon?
Yeah, good point. Well,
technology changes, but you just have to, by the general rule of the way a market works in anything, whether it's business or not, everything naturally adjusts because people change. Now, when I cover high school football on Friday nights now, I think that generation to generation, kids are 80% the same, and the 20% gets magnified. But the fact is, people change, and you can't really, there's a one of the things that's happened in NASCAR is there's a lag in its popularity. There's a gap between the traditional fans, many of whom have become alienated, and the fans that flopped there 10 years ago who have moved on, and now they're following, mixed martial arts or something, whatever the latest sport of the week is.
Talking with Monty Dutton. You mentioned a number of drivers from yesteryear that most every NASCAR fan would know. Right now, for I don't know how many years, the face of NASCAR has been Dale Jr. Now, Dale Jr. retiring, who is going to take his place, or will it be a number of guys to kind of step up and be that media darling like Dale Jr. has been?
Part of this is unavoidable because people can't last forever. There were a lot of people, I would imagine, when you were covering some races, who resented Darrell Waltrip because he upset the apple cart of Cale and Richard and David and the Allisons. And there are a lot. It's happening faster than you'd think, and I think one of the reasons it's happening. You have all these, Kyle Busch came along, and nowadays Kyle Larson's really bright, and Ryan Blaney and Chase Elliott, and there are and many others coming along. Alex Bowman is going to replace Dale Jr. next year, and they're very talented, but people don't know them. And I think another factor for all of the opportunity is something that a lot of people are familiar with. I think with the sport and a little bit in some kind of an austerity kick, one of the reasons that Alex Bowman is getting a ride and Matt Kenseth doesn't have one for next year is because you can probably get Alex Bowman for a whole lot less money than you could get Matt Kenseth. Just like you could have a veteran sports writer and you try to run him off and make him miserable so you could hire a kid out of college for a third of what his salary is.
They wouldn't do that, though, would they? Monty, they wouldn't really do that, though, would they?
Oh, no. Not for figures as respected as you and I.
Yeah, right. Hey, all right, Pocono this weekend, any particular drivers that just have great success up there?
Well, it's a track. Denny Hamlin's a guy who's done pretty well there before. It's a track that is most similar to Indianapolis, which precedes it. And oftentimes people who run well at Indianapolis, I expect that you're going to see the usual suspects. Everyone is waiting for Kyle Busch to win a race. He's done everything but that. Martin Truex those two have run up front and led more laps than anyone else. And you have Jimmy Johnson. I think it's a track that.
Okay. Hey, Monty, we're running out of time. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Looking forward to the race this weekend. right, got one more segment left. Got room for you if you want to throw in your 2 cents worth. We're at 800 956 7266. 35 days until football, until they start playing Carolina and Clemson. USC reports on Monday, or practices on Monday. Clemson practices on Thursday. Joe Moglia will miss the season. 5-month medical leave. Jamie Chadwell will stand in for him this season. Moglia expects to be back in 2018. He's 51-15 since taking over in 2012 at Coastal Carolina. But, things are going to be a little bit more difficult for Coastal this season, going to the Sun Belt with teams like App State, Troy, South Alabama, Georgia Southern. Be a little bit more difficult schedule. Of course, we know South Carolina, NC State, and Charlotte, 3 o'clock kickoff on September the 2nd. I'm not one that usually sits in front of the TV, but I might just do that on September the 2nd because you got Kent State and Clemson at noon. And then you got South Carolina, NC State at 3. And then at 8 o'clock, Alabama and Florida State. That's a humdinger. No doubt about that one. Some of the other state schools, PC's at Wake Forest on August the 31st. Livingstone and Benedict here in Columbia, 5 o'clock on September the 2nd. That's the Capital City Classic, the annual Capital City Classic. Newberry's at Citadel. Furman is at Wofford. UMass is at Coastal. And on Sunday, South Carolina State at Southern. That game in Baton Rouge. Sunday afternoon, it's on ESPN2 as a matter of fact. But some really good games across the country. Good games involving the SEC and the ACC, the 2 leagues that we kind of keep an eye on. Of course, the defending national champions. I think our producer, Patrick Daniels, said they hung the championship banner today in the stadium up at Clemson. Mentioned Presbyterian Wake Forest. Night, August 31st. Friday night, Boston College is at Northern Illinois. Then on Saturday, Kent State at Clemson. Florida State and Alabama. Louisville plays Purdue. That game in Indianapolis. Purdue's not very good, though. North Carolina, an interesting game at home against California. Virginia Tech and West Virginia on Sunday night, and Georgia Tech and Tennessee on Monday night. SEC, of course, we mentioned the Gamecocks at NC State and Alabama and Florida State. But Florida and Michigan's a game I'm very, very curious to see how that comes out. Michigan is a 4-point favorite in that one. LSU and BYU and Houston, I think LSU is going to be too physical for them. But that'll be interesting as well. And then the weekend games, Texas A&M at UCLA on Sunday night, Tennessee, Georgia Tech, as we mentioned, on Monday night. Really looking forward to seeing how those games. It's really a very good, very, very good opening week in college football. A couple other notes in case you missed them. The Cleveland Browns signed Brandon Wiles, former Gamecock running back. Wiles was cut yesterday by the Jets. Late last night in the show, it broke that the Mavericks and P.J. Dozier had agreed to a contract, a partially guaranteed contract. South Carolina State picked to finish third in the MEAC. I'm trying to talk and look for something at the same time. North Carolina Central, North Carolina A&T picked 1-2, and then South Carolina State 3. Then it's Bethune-Cookman, Hampton. Florida A&M 6, Norfolk State, Morgan State, Howard, Savannah State, Delaware State rounding it out. Darius Leonard, who's a really good player, he's on the Butkus Award watch list, even from an FCS team. The preseason Defensive Player of the Year for a second straight season, and that makes sense because he was the Player of the Year after Defensive Player of the Year after this past season. 4 other Bulldogs earned preseason All-MEAC first-team honors. Senior linebacker Deshaun Taylor, graduate defensive back Jason Baxter, senior offensive lineman Robbie Stevenson and Justin Evans, offensive lineman Victor Ishmael, kicker Tyler Scandrett, defensive lineman Greg Newell, defensive back Devondre Powell, all seniors. Second team honors, senior defensive end Ty Cravens. Third team, those are the preseason MEAC. Want to really thank my longtime friend Phil Kornblut for trusting me with his baby the past 2 weeks. Phil is as good as it gets when it comes to sports talk. And he's very well respected in the world of sports media. He keeps getting older, but he doesn't slow down. He still works very, very hard, a lot harder than I do in sports media. Also want to thank the professor, Tom Hayes, for sharing the mic with me the past couple of weeks. Tom knows his stuff. Jared Rogers, Patrick Daniel eased the production by pushing the right buttons as well. And we do appreciate that, although Patrick maybe needs some driving lessons. I don't know. But just wasn't his fault. Okay. I'm just glad you're not hurt, and I'm glad nobody was hurt. A little traffic accident, a little inside humor or lack of humor on that one. And I want to thank your listeners out there, some of whom called in, and I have not talked with some of you since my days sharing the show with the Corn Man some 15 years or so ago. Now, if you did like what you heard, I'm on every morning here in the Columbia area with the very knowledgeable Rick Sanford. Now, Rick is well, if you know your history, he's the first-round draft pick to come out of South Carolina, was an All-American defensive back at South Carolina, and was a All-Pro 7 years, 6 with the New England Patriots. We won't hold that against him playing with the Patriots, however. But that show can be streamed if you want to try that. WGCV.net. Just look up my name. It's 2 F's, or Dr. Rick's name, and you can get the information on that. So anyway, thanks again, everyone. I hope that it will not be another 14 years before you hear me again on Sports Talk. I did learn one valuable lesson. You remember Tommy Lee Jones in Lonesome Dove when he was taking Gus back to Texas after Gus had passed away? And he says, man, I got to learn to be careful what I promise. So I got to learn to be careful what I promise. I owed Phil a favor. Phil says, how about fill in for me a couple of weeks? I said, yeah, no problem. Not really thinking too much about it. I mean, I used to do 2 shows every day, but that was 15 years ago. I've gotten a little bit older. And this has worn me out. There's no doubt about that. But I have enjoyed it. Really have enjoyed it. He will be back, the Corn Man. Phil will be back on Monday after a couple of weeks off, so he'll be fresh and ready to go. And of course, Monday, the Gamecocks will be practicing. They'll be on the football field. Thursday, Clemson will be on the football field as well. So we got a lot coming up here in the sports world. But anyway, I did want to once again thank Phil for trusting me with the show the past couple of weeks. And thank you, listeners. Have a great weekend, everybody. Phil will be back with you on Monday. And I'll be back doing my morning show. Have a great weekend, everybody.